What happens when a beloved television host sits down for what should be a routine interview with royalty, only to witness a shocking display of entitlement and disrespect that spirals out of control? In just 30 seconds, a prince's outburst would turn a morning show into absolute chaos, exposing a side of royalty that viewers never expected to see. It was supposed to be a simple conversation. Lorraine Kelly, one of Britain's most respected morning television hosts, had welcomed countless guests to her bright, cheerful set over the years. Her warmth and genuine nature had made her a household name, someone who could put even the most nervous guest at ease. On this particular morning, the studio buzzed with anticipation. The guest was Prince Harry, and the topic was his latest charitable endeavor, a cause close to his heart. The producers expected a pleasant chat, maybe some light humor, and certainly no drama. The interview began normally enough. Lorraine greeted Harry with her trademark smile and a welcoming tone that had become her signature. The cameras rolled, the lights glowed warmly, and millions of viewers settled in with their morning tea, ready for an uplifting segment. "Good morning, Your Royal Highness. Thank you so much for joining us today. We are absolutely thrilled to have you here," Lorraine began, her voice carrying that familiar kindness that made her viewers feel like they were chatting with an old friend. Harry nodded, but something in his expression seemed tense. He settled into the guest chair with an air of impatience, his posture stiff and uninviting. "Yes, well, let's get on with it, shall we?" Harry replied, his tone clipped. Lorraine blinked, momentarily caught off guard by the abrupt response, but she recovered quickly with a professional smile. "Of course. I wanted to talk to you about the wonderful charity work you have been doing. Can you tell our viewers a bit about what inspired you to get involved with this particular cause?" Harry sighed audibly, as if the question itself was exhausting. "Look, Lorraine, I have answered this question a dozen times already. Are you not prepared? Did you not do your research?" The studio suddenly felt colder. The crew exchanged glances, and Lorraine's smile faltered for just a fraction of a second before she composed herself. She had dealt with difficult guests before, but this was different. This was hostile. "I absolutely did my research, and I know you have spoken about this before," Lorraine said gently, maintaining her composure. "But our viewers might not have heard your story, and I think it is really important for them to hear it directly from you. They want to connect with you and understand why this matters to you." Harry shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. "Your viewers. Right. Well, perhaps your viewers should pay better attention. I am not here to repeat myself endlessly for people who cannot be bothered to keep up with current events." The atmosphere in the studio grew thick with tension. Lorraine's producer, watching from behind the cameras, felt her stomach drop. This was not going well. But they were live. There was no cutting away, no saving this. Lorraine had to navigate these treacherous waters in real time. "I understand that you have been busy, and I truly appreciate you taking the time to be here with us," Lorraine continued, her voice still kind, but with a subtle firmness creeping in. "Let's talk about the impact your charity has had. I read that you recently helped fund a new community center. That must have been incredibly rewarding." "Incredibly rewarding," Harry repeated, his voice dripping with condescension. "Do you have any idea how patronizing that sounds, Lorraine? This is not about feeling rewarded. This is about making real change, but I would not expect someone like you to grasp the complexity of what we are doing." The insult hung in the air. "Someone like you." The words were deliberate, meant to belittle. Lorraine's eyes flickered with something that might have been hurt, but she refused to show weakness. Behind the cameras, the floor manager shifted uncomfortably, wondering if they should intervene somehow, knowing there was nothing they could do. This was live television. This was happening. "I think I do understand," Lorraine said, her voice steady. "I have been covering charitable work and speaking with people who dedicate their lives to helping others for many, many years. I have the utmost respect for what you are trying to accomplish. But I also have respect for this conversation, and for our viewers who tuned in to hear about your work, not to be dismissed. There it was, a line drawn in the sand. Lorraine was not backing down, and Harry did not like it one bit. His body language changed instantly. He leaned forward, his expression hardening into something cold and calculating. Dismissed? Harry's voice rose slightly, a sharp edge cutting through the word. You think you are being dismissed? Let me tell you something, Lorraine. I came here as a favor to your show, which, let us be honest, could use the ratings boost. And this is the treatment I get? Amateur questions and fake concern? One of the camera operators actually gasped quietly. The sound technician frantically adjusted levels, making sure every word was being captured clearly. This was unprecedented. This was the kind of moment that would be analyzed frame by frame, word by word. The producers in the control room watched their monitors with a mixture of horror and fascination. The camera operators did not know where to look. This was car crash television, unfolding live, and there was nothing anyone could do to stop it. Viewers at home sat frozen, teacups halfway to their lips, unable to believe what they were witnessing. Social media was already exploding, people posting in real time about what was happening. Lorraine took a deep breath, her professionalism the only thing keeping her anchored. This is not fake concern, and these are not amateur questions. I am asking you about your charity because I believe in giving you a platform to share something meaningful. If you feel that is beneath you, then perhaps we should end this interview now. Her words were calm, measured, but firm. She was giving him an out, a chance to reset, to apologize, to salvage what was left of this disaster. But Harry did not take it. End the interview? Harry laughed, a harsh, humorless sound. You do not get to end this interview, Lorraine. Do you understand who I am? Do you comprehend the position I hold? You should feel grateful that I am even sitting in this chair. The entitlement was staggering. Every word dripped with arrogance, with a complete lack of awareness about how he sounded, how he was coming across. Lorraine's expression hardened, and for the first time, viewers could see anger flash across her face. With all due respect, Your Royal Highness, Lorraine said, and the formality now felt icy. This is my show. I have been doing this for decades, and I have interviewed presidents, prime ministers, and yes, royalty. Not once have I been spoken to the way you are speaking to me right now. Grateful? I invited you here to talk about something good, something positive. But if you cannot do that with basic decency, then yes, I absolutely can end this interview. The studio was dead silent, except for the low hum of equipment. Everyone held their breath. This was unprecedented. A host standing up to a member of the royal family, live on air, was not something anyone had ever seen before. Harry's face flushed red. His hands gripped the armrests of his chair. How dare you speak to me like that? Do you have any idea who you are talking to? I am not some nobody you can push around. This is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. I know exactly who I am talking to, Lorraine replied, her voice like steel wrapped in velvet. I am talking to someone who came onto my show, accepted my invitation, and has spent the last several minutes insulting me, insulting my viewers, and behaving as though common courtesy does not apply to you. That is who I am talking to. Harry stood up abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the studio floor. The sudden movement made everyone jump. This is a disgrace. You are a disgrace. I came here in good faith, and you have ambushed me with your petty attitude and your small-minded questions. Ambushed you? Lorraine stood as well, refusing to be towered over. I asked you about your charity. That is not an ambush. That is an interview. But clearly, you are not interested in having a conversation. You are interested in being worshipped, and I am sorry. But that is not what happens here. The prince's eyes blazed. He pointed a finger at Lorraine, his voice rising to a near shout. You know what your problem is, Lorraine. You have gotten too big for your boots. You think because you have a little show, a little audience, that you can talk to anyone, however you please. Well, let me educate you. You cannot. Not to me. Oh, not ever! Lorraine did not flinch. Her voice remained calm, but it carried a weight that could not be ignored. I think we are done here. I am asking you to leave my show. The words dropped like a bomb. The crew froze. Producers watching on monitors gasped. This was it. The moment that would be replayed endlessly, dissected and analyzed. Lorraine Kelly, beloved morning host, had just kicked out a prince. Harry's mouth opened and closed, disbelief written across his face. You are asking me to leave? You cannot do that. You do not have the authority. This is my show, Lorraine repeated, her tone unwavering. I have every authority. You have been rude, dismissive, and disrespectful. I have tried to be patient. I have tried to give you opportunities to course correct, but you have chosen to escalate. So yes, I am asking you to leave. Now. Harry's face went from red to almost purple. His hands clenched into fists at his sides. This is unbelievable. You are going to regret this, Lorraine. You are going to regret this so much. Do you understand what kind of consequences this will have for you? Are you threatening me? Lorraine asked, her eyebrows rising. On live television, you are threatening me. I am not threatening anyone, Harry snapped, though his tone suggested otherwise. I am simply stating a fact. You have made a massive mistake today, a career-ending mistake. Lorraine crossed her arms, and despite the seriousness of the situation, there was a flicker of defiance in her eyes. The only mistake I made was thinking this interview would be different. I gave you the benefit of the doubt, and you showed me exactly who you are. So please, leave my set. For a long, agonizing moment, Harry just stood there, staring at her as if he could not quite believe this was happening. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the standoff. Finally, he let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Fine. I will leave your pathetic little show. But mark my words, Lorraine, this is not over. Not by a long shot. He ripped off his microphone with such force that the sound engineer winced, tossed it onto the chair, and stormed off the set. His footsteps echoed through the stunned silence of the studio. A door slammed somewhere off camera, and just like that, he was gone. Lorraine stood there for a moment, her chest rising and falling as she processed what had just happened. Then she turned to face the camera, her expression softening into something more human, more vulnerable. Well, she said, her voice a little shaky but still strong, I think we can all agree that did not go as planned. I want to apologize to all of you watching at home. You tuned in expecting a positive conversation about charity work, and instead, you witnessed, well, you saw what you saw. She paused, gathering herself, and when she spoke again, her voice was clear and determined. I have always believed in treating my guests with respect, no matter who they are. But respect goes both ways. I will not be spoken to like that. Not by anyone. I hope you can understand that. The producer signaled for a commercial break, and as the camera cut away, the studio erupted. Crew members rushed to Lorraine's side, asking if she was okay, if she needed anything. She waved them off with a tired smile. I'm fine, she said quietly. Really? I am fine. But as she sat back down, waiting for the break to end so she could continue with the rest of the show, she knew that this moment would define her day, possibly her career. She had stood up to royalty. She had refused to be bullied, refused to be diminished. And in that moment, however chaotic and uncomfortable it had been, she had shown millions of viewers what it looked like to maintain dignity in the face of disrespect. The interview that was supposed to highlight charity work had instead become a masterclass in standing your ground. Harry's entitled outburst his dismissive attitude, his threats, all of it had been captured on camera for the world to see. And Lorraine, with her calm professionalism and refusal to tolerate mistreatment, had emerged not as a victim, but as a symbol of quiet strength. The studio was still buzzing with nervous energy. Makeup artists and production assistants whispered to each other, their voices hushed and urgent. What had just happened? Had that really just happened? The answer, of course, was yes. It had happened, and it had happened on live television, where millions of people had witnessed every uncomfortable second. As the commercial break ended and the cameras came back to life, Lorraine took a deep breath, straightened her shoulders, and smiled at the lens. The show would go on. It always did. But today, something had shifted. Today, a line had been drawn, and everyone watching knew that sometimes, no matter how powerful or privileged someone might be, respect is something that must be earned, not demanded. Her next guest, a local author promoting their new book, they entered the stage with wide eyes and visible nervousness. They had been waiting in the green room, watching the interview unfold on the monitor there. "Are you okay?" they whispered to Lorraine during the commercial break before their segment began. Lorraine nodded, managing a genuine smile. "I am. Thank you for asking. Now, let us talk about your wonderful book and give our viewers something lovely to focus on." And just like that, she shifted gears. Professional to her core, she guided the author through a warm, engaging conversation that felt like a balm after the earlier chaos. She asked thoughtful questions, laughed at the right moments, gave the book the attention it deserved. It was a reminder of why she had built such a loyal following over the years. This was who Lorraine Kelly truly was. The morning that began with such promise. With the excitement of a high-profile guest and the anticipation of an uplifting conversation, had transformed into something entirely different. It became a moment where viewers witnessed raw, unfiltered conflict. They saw entitlement clash with professionalism. Arrogance meet its match in quiet determination. They saw what happens when someone expects deference simply because of their title and encounters someone who believes respect must be mutual. In those few explosive minutes, everything changed. The studio staff, who had worked on hundreds of episodes, had never seen anything like it. The tension, the escalation, the sheer audacity of how Harry spoke to someone who had invited him as a guest, it was almost incomprehensible. Yet, there it was, unfolding in real time, impossible to look away from. Lorraine's decision to ask him to leave was not made lightly. She knew the weight of it, the potential firestorm it could create. But in that moment, she also knew that allowing him to continue would send a message she could not live with. It would say that fame and status gave someone the right to be cruel, to be dismissive, to treat others as beneath them. And that was not a message Lorraine Kelly was willing to endorse. What struck so many people watching was the stark contrast between the two. Lorraine, with decades of experience and a reputation built on kindness and authenticity, remained composed even as the situation spiraled. Harry, who had come on the show ostensibly to discuss helping others, revealed a side that seemed completely at odds with the charitable image he was trying to project. Every word he spoke seemed to dig the hole deeper. The condescension in his voice when he questioned her preparation. The mockery when he implied she could not understand complex issues. The entitlement when he suggested the show needed him more than he needed it. Each comment built on the last, creating a picture of someone completely disconnected from how most people live and interact. And through it all, Lorraine gave him chances. Multiple opportunities to reset, to take a breath, to remember why he was there. She tried steering the conversation back to the charity, back to something positive. But Harry was not interested in being steered. He was interested in being right, in asserting dominance, in making sure everyone understood his importance. When she finally drew her line in the sand, when she told him with crystal clarity that his behavior was unacceptable, the look on his face was almost worth the entire ordeal. Shock, disbelief, anger, all of it flashed across his features in quick succession. He genuinely could not comprehend that someone would stand up to him, would refuse to be intimidated by his title or his threats. His parting words, the thinly veiled threats about her career, about consequences, only served to underscore everything that had come before. It was not an apology. It was not an acknowledgement that perhaps he had been out of line. It was one final attempt to assert power, to make her doubt herself, to leave her worried about what might happen next. But if he thought those words would shake her, he was wrong. Lorraine stood her ground right up to the moment he stormed off, and she continued standing it after he was gone. Her address to the viewers after his exit was pitch perfect, honest, a little vulnerable, but also resolute. She acknowledged the awkwardness, the disappointment of what viewers had witnessed, but she made no apologies for her decision. That moment of connection with the audience, when she looked into the camera and essentially said, "I will not be treated like that," resonated deeply. It was not rehearsed. It was not calculated. It was simply real. And in an age where so much television feels manufactured and controlled, that authenticity cut through like nothing else. The crew's reaction spoke volumes too. Their immediate concern for her, their rallying around her during the commercial break, showed that everyone in that studio understood what had just happened. They had witnessed something extraordinary, something that would be talked about for years to come, and they were proud of her for not backing down. What began as a routine booking, a seemingly straightforward interview about charity work, had become a cultural moment. It became a story about respect, about boundaries, about what happens when someone so used to deference encounters someone unwilling to provide it unconditionally. It was about the collision between entitlement and professionalism, between expecting worship and demanding basic courtesy. In the end, the interview that never really was, the conversation that devolved into conflict, revealed far more than any scripted discussion ever could have. It showed character in both directions. Harry's inability to handle even gentle questioning, his quick turn to insults and condescension, his ultimate threats, all painted a picture of someone deeply insecure despite the privilege and platform. Lorraine's patience, her professionalism even under attack, her eventual firm boundary, showed someone who knew exactly who she was and what she stood for. The studio lights eventually dimmed. The cameras stopped rolling. The crew packed up equipment and discussed what they had just been part of. And somewhere, likely fuming in a car speeding away from the studio, a prince nursed his wounded pride, possibly beginning to realize that his behavior had been captured, preserved, and would be examined by millions. Lorraine, meanwhile, continued with her show, because that is what professionals do. They handle the crisis, they maintain composure, and then they move forward. She had other segments to complete, other guests to welcome, a show to finish, and she did it all with the same grace and warmth that had made her successful in the first place. The morning that should have been about highlighting good work, about celebrating efforts to help communities, about shining a light on positive initiatives, instead became a lesson in something else entirely. It became a reminder that titles do not grant the right to mistreat others, that positions of privilege come with responsibilities, including the responsibility to treat people with basic human decency, that no amount of royal blood or public profile excuses rudeness, dismissiveness, or threats. And perhaps most importantly, it showed that sometimes standing up for yourself, even when the other person seems more powerful, even when it would be easier to just let it slide, is the right thing to do. Lorraine did not raise her voice, did not resort to insults, did not stoop to his level. She simply held her ground and said, "Enough. No more.